Good evening, everybody. I'm calling to order the March 20th, 2019 meeting of the Zoning Board of Appeals. And the first matter on our agenda is the minutes, the approval of the minutes for February 20th, 2019. Did everybody get a chance to see the minutes? Yes. And Tim, thank you again for your edits. Any other edits, comments, concerns?
I think there's just an extra dot there.
Where?
The Scott Bergen.
By? Okay, she's right. You see that on call to order? The meeting was called to order by, take out the "the."
That's all I saw.
Okay.
Unless we wanted to put the Royal or...
Any other questions, concerns, corrections?
No.
No?
No.
All right, I make a motion that we accept the meeting minutes with that one correction. Do I have a second?
Second.
All in favor? Aye. Opposed? All right, carried. All right, we have no new business this evening, and since it's not quite 7:45, I'm going to skip to the old business, which is the Goomer Hollow application. At the last meeting, we spoke about what our thoughts were, the board members did, and ultimately we had a resolution put together as well as the decision. I think, Kim, are there copies of the decision and the resolution up there?
Just the decision.
Just the decision?
Yeah.
Okay. What we usually do in cases of this magnitude, where there's a lengthy decision, which is 15 pages long, we have a resolution, which is only 4 pages long, which I will read and makes reference and incorporates the decision. That's what we've done in the past. So, what I'm going to do now is to read the resolution, which again is 4 pages long. Zoning Board of Appeals, Town of Rhinebeck Resolution. Adopting decision of the Zoning Board of Appeals in the matter of the appeal and application for interpretation of Goomer Hollow LLC from the determination of the Town of Rhinebeck Zoning Enforcement Officer dated October 23rd, 2018, stating that screening is required for roof-mounted solar power plants pursuant to Section 125-47 of the Town of Rhinebeck zoning law and Section 125-48 of the Town of Rhinebeck zoning law. This is ZBA case number 975. Whereas paragraph 1, this case is an appeal and application for interpretation by Goomer Hollow LLC and Sun Common, hereinafter referred to as the applicant, from the determination of the Town of Rhinebeck Zoning Enforcement Officer, ZEO, that determined that solar power plants, including those with roof-mounted solar panels, are required to be screened pursuant to the Town of Rhinebeck zoning law. Paragraph 2, the applicant's property is located at 72-92 East Gate Drive, is tax parcel 13509-6069-00-822375-000. It's in the town's rural agricultural 10 RA10 zoning district pursuant to the Town of Rhinebeck's zoning law, the zoning law. Paragraph 3, the applicant currently has 3 existing agricultural structures on the property. The applicant proposes to install roof-mounted solar panels on these buildings for the purpose of selling the generated electricity to the public. This constitutes a solar power plant under the definitions of Section 125-47B of the Town of Rhinebeck zoning law, entitled Solar Energy Systems. Paragraph 4. Solar power plants are permitted in the RA10 zoning district, subject to the issuance of a special use permit and site plan approval from the Town of Rhinebeck Planning Board. Paragraph 5. The applicant was previously before the Town of Rhinebeck Planning Board on January 10th, 2018, seeking those approvals. Paragraph 6. During the course of the Town Planning Board's review, the topic of required screening was discussed at length. Paragraph 7, the applicant then requested a determination from the town ZEO as to whether screening is required for solar power plants that utilized roof-mounted solar arrays on existing buildings. Paragraph 8, the town ZEO determined that all solar power plants, which included both ground-mounted and roof-mounted systems, required screening pursuant to the Town of Rhinebeck zoning law in a decision dated October 23rd, 2018. Paragraph 9. On October 31st, 2018, the applicant appealed the ZEO's determination to the Zoning Board of Appeals. Paragraph 10. The applicant's appeal was timely filed within 60 days of the filing of the ZEO's decision pursuant to zoning law section 125-125B. On November 14th, 2018, this appeal was classified as a Type 2 action under State Environmental Quality Review Act, SEQR, because it is an application for an interpretation on appeal from an administrative decision from the town ZEO. And the cite on that is 6 NYCRR 617.5C, subdivision 37. Paragraph 12. A ZBA public hearing was duly advertised and held at the town hall. The public hearing was opened on December 20th, 2018. The ZBA heard arguments and testimony from the applicant and its representatives. We also heard argument and testimony from members of the public. Paragraph 13. The public hearing was continued on the January 9th, 2019 meeting, where the ZBA heard additional testimony and comments from the applicant and its representatives and from members of the public. Paragraph 14. Due to the request from some of the neighbors, the comment period was held open for an additional 10 calendar days to allow for further written comments by the public. Written comments were accepted by the ZBA until January 18th, 2019 at 5 p.m., at which point the public comment period was closed. Paragraph 15. The applicant was provided an opportunity to respond to any and all public comments following the close of the comment period. The applicant provided a written letter to the ZBA dated January 24th, 2019, in response to the public comments received. Paragraph 16. Pursuant to zoning law section 125-125F1, we must issue our decision in all cases within 62 days from the close of the public hearing. Zoning law section 125-125F2 allows us to issue a decision beyond the 62-day period if we have the consent of the applicant to do so. In this case, the 62-day period expired on March 12th, 2019. However, in this case, we have requested and received from the applicant consent to extend that period by 8 days to today, March 20th, 2019, so as we can issue our decision at our regularly scheduled ZBA meeting. Now, therefore, be it resolved by the Town of Rhinebeck ZBA as follows. Section 1, we adopt our written decision in this matter dated March 20th, 2019, a copy of which decision is attached hereto and made a part hereof. Section 2, our written decision which is attached and incorporated herein is approximately 14 pages, and which sets forth our in-depth analysis of this case and sets forth in detail our findings of fact, our conclusions of law, and our determination in this case based upon the record before us in this case. We have paper copies of our written decision here tonight. They're over to my left, and those copies of the decision are available for distribution tonight to anyone interested in having a copy of the decision. But in order to save time, we will not read our entire decision this evening, but based upon the findings of fact, conclusions of law, and reasoning set forth in our written decision, we determine as follows. A, the meaning of the plain language of the zoning law, section 125-47, is clear that screening is required for solar power plants regardless of whether the solar panels utilized by those plants are roof-mounted or ground-mounted. We conclude that requiring such screening is also in compliance with zoning law section 125-48, which requires the screening of all commercial uses from adjacent residential properties and the public rights-of-ways, both of which are present in this application. C, based upon the plain language of the zoning law, we find the intent of the town board was to appropriately screen all commercial solar power plants from scenic roads, park lands, historic properties, and adjacent residential properties. This proposed project is located close to Mill Road, which is a designated scenic road and is close to several residential neighbors. D, the extent and adequacy of such screening shall be at the discretion of the Town of Rhinebeck Planning Board during its review pursuant to 125-47I of the zoning law, which is further supported by Section 125-48 of the zoning law. And E, it is for these reasons that we uphold the ZEO's determination that appropriate screening is required for roof-mounted solar panels for solar power plants. The Planning Board may continue its review of this application and determine appropriate landscaping and/or design features to properly screen this commercial use from the public rights of way and residential neighbors. Discussion?
Yes.
Okay.
I'm representing the minority opinion here, but I think I'll just read my comment into the record.
Okay, put microphone, yeah.
How's that? Is that, okay. Section 125-47-14 of the Rhinebeck Code states, and we've all read this a few times, appropriate language and/or site design features, including both the maintenance of existing natural vegetation and the introduction of new plantings consisting of a naturally appearing blend of deciduous and coniferous species, shall be required to help screen the solar power plant and accessory structures from scenic roadways, parklands, historic properties, and neighboring residences. Directly following that is Section 15 of the same general code, of the Rhinebeck Code, and it states that the maximum height of the top edge of any solar panel shall be 12 feet above the ground level when the panel is oriented at a maximum vertical tilt. To me, common sense suggests that the latter entry in the code, i.e. the 12-foot height limit, was not intended to be applied to roof-mounted solar systems. Why should the previous entry in the code, i.e. the screening requirement, be considered any more or less authoritative? The plain meaning of the law is not clear. It is ambiguous and therefore should be found in favor of the applicant.
Any other comments?
I just have
Concerns?
one proposed suggested correction or adjustment.
Okay.
Section 16, first line, pursuant to zoning law, we must issue our decisions in all cases within 62 days. And then we go on to say, but not in this case, because we have permission. So I just suggest we strike in all cases.
Just as clarification, the rule is that it's supposed to be with 62 days. If we get the mutual consent of the board and of the applicant, it can be extended. So it's not that it's exception, it's just that we received the extension by Mike DeCola and Jeff Irish.
No, of course, it just seems that in all cases seems so declarative, and yet the next paragraph says, but we can get permission to extend it. So I'm just suggesting we strike in all cases because clearly it's not in all cases.
We can do that.
I take no position on it.
Okay.
You know.
I'm not going to go with that, but it doesn't make sense to me.
Okay. Does anybody else have any issue with that language? I have no problem consenting to changing it.
Okay.
Taking those three words out.
There's an extra paragraph marker on page 2, section 11, last line.
Where's that, Tim?
The last line of section 11.
Oh, extra
11.
parenthetical. Yep.
Yeah. Detail.
Where are you?
It's actually,
not
it's
extra.
closing the first paragraph.
We're doing it inconsistently because we don't do it anywhere else.
Okay. He's saying
What was
that
that?
this one is extra.
Oh, okay. So you want to take the,
But it's not extra in that case. I think you're saying it
It closes the first
closes
bracket.
the one before 6.
Yeah, it can be a bracket. We can change it to a bracket.
Oh, I see, okay.
Need a motion, Scott?
Well, any further deliberations, Madam Mayor?
Well, yeah, that was just going to ask, any other comments, concerns? Okay. Chris?
Motion.
No, a motion to adopt the resolution as read with the changes that have been agreed to. Yes.
Who's doing a motion in a second?
Second.
Okay.
Yes.
Scott, okay. Richard? Lisa?
In favor.
Tim Alba?
Against?
Kathy Clark?
In favor.
Dave Thomas?
In favor.
Okay. All right, it's after 7:45, so it's time for the Baker application. You're here for the Baker application? All right, come on up.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Good evening, members of the board. Happy spring. My name is Rob DuPont. This is the third time I've been before the zoning board. I'm representing Jeff Baker, who owns a piece of property at 1010 Route 308, town of Rhinebeck. It's a 24-acre parcel located in the RC district. And what Mr. Baker is looking to do is build a new single-family residence. The reason we're here is we're seeking an area variance because there's a section in the zoning law that states that the primary dwelling needs to be closer to the access road than a secondary dwelling. There is an existing 600-square-foot cottage on the property. It's been there for a while. It's occupied. Mr. Baker would like to leave that building in place and build his new home legally down by the water, which would be about 330 feet farther away from the road than the current cottage. I know I think pretty much everybody here has been to the site and seen it, and there was some objection from the public, but I think that everyone knows there's no violations on the property. Mr. Baker has already gone through a lot of approval process with the planning board, at least started the process. He had gotten approvals to do work in the wetlands area, the buffer, down by the water on Sapasco Lake. Those have all been done legally, and he'd like to move forward to the next round of reviews to the Wetlands Board and the Planning Board for the house.
Now, I had asked, and thank you for hosting us, going out on the site. That was very informative. But I had asked if there were some plans that we could look at to see what the place was going to actually look like.
I don't have floor plans.
Okay.
What I do have is, this is an image that Mr. Baker provided to me, which I made copies of.
Okay. And the reason being is we do have to consider the character of the neighborhood, and that's part of the...
There you go.
And can you give one to Chris for the record, or do you have one already?
That's all I got.
All right, you can give it to her tomorrow.
Okay.
Just stick one in there.
The image there that's the inspiration of what the design will be. The house is going to be 2 stories tall, modern in form, very simple. The exterior will be very low maintenance. He's talking about a metal roof and shed style, either a natural wood or some kind of hardy plank siding on the outside for low maintenance. It will be a modern house. He'd like to have glass facing the lake for obvious reasons. The footprint that's on the site plan now is about 50 by 30, and it will be a 2-story house, only 2-story house. Near as I can tell from that image and from basic construction dimensions, the house will probably be about 22 feet tall at its highest point. The garage, which is nested behind the house, that footprint shows 35 by 35. That's probably pretty close to what it will be. That's going to be a 1-story garage with storage above, so it'll be a smaller form than the house, so the house will screen that from the lake. So that, I know the planning board also requires what the house is going to look like if he goes to the next step,
Right.
assuming that he does. And he does fully intend to have me put time into the design of the building, but he's hoping that that image would be sufficient to show basically what it will look like, or what he's looking to build.
Okay, and the front of this obviously would be looking out at the lake.
That would be the side-facing lake, yes.
Yeah. Okay, thank you.
So the long side is going to be across the little peninsula. Let me come
you-
up,
oh.
yeah, let me just,
I can have long side here faces the water. That would be the side. So that would be the highest point of that. So the roof would be sloping back.
Can you consider it
Yes,
without,
then that's garage.
a floor plan? I mean, who's stated verbally what he thought the dimensions were, but
this is slightly different than
you don't have anything on paper to say that's what it is.
Well, I think it's up to each member to determine whether they feel comfortable providing this, given what has been represented to us, that what it will look like, what the footprint is. And you can incorporate, I think, in the resolution, what has been presented to us. And then, again, the planning board's going to make the determination as to whether it's appropriate for the
Yeah,
the
that is
site or
true,
not.
yeah. We have to do that with the planning board.
I just wanted to have some kind of idea of what we're looking at.
what do you think the final footprint of this house is?
Well, it's on that site plan, which is what I was given, it's 50 by 30. It's certainly not going to be any bigger than that. It may very well be smaller. That was put on there as part of the engineer's work to at least show a footprint that would be worst-case scenario. And by the way, I don't know if it matters for me to mention this, but the health department has approved the septic plans for the house. And I believe...
Couldn't they have done that without knowing what the flows could be?
Well, it's a three-bedroom house, so the flow was dictated on the number of occupants of the house.
Do you have,
Three bedroom, three bath? Is that?
Well, it's three-bedroom, I'm not sure how many bath, but it's the number of bedrooms that dictates the number of occupants in the flow.
That dictates the
Yeah.
capacity.
and you
for
have
the
written
surge.
approval?
Yes.
Okay. Could you
Was
supply a
that, that
copy?
was provided.
Was it
Actually,
provided
that was
already?
emailed,
Okay.
Chris, that was emailed to
That was in
you.
the first package.
Okay.
Well,
Yeah, all
I think
right.
in the first package, it was in process.
There's one other thing, too.
Yeah, it was in
Yeah.
process in the first
But then it
package,
was
but
mailed
I think
out.
you're right. I think
It was
it
mailed
ultimately
out
was
after, that's
completed.
right.
You're right.
Yeah, the last time I was here, I know it had been submitted back to the health department, but we hadn't had approval yet, but it has since been approved.
Right.
So I believe the only thing that they're waiting on is Mr. Baker to sign the final maps, and then it's done. Also, we did receive a letter in support of the project, or at least no objection to the project from Mr.
Ramapo.
Mr. Weiss, I believe, Adam Weiss, the CEO of Ramapo, stating you have no objections to the scope of work.
Questions, concerns, comments?
Perhaps we should note for the record that we did have our site meeting, and in my particular case, it was my second time.
Okay, yeah, that was on March 2nd, I believe.
Want to say anything for the record about that site visit?
Yes.
It's a beautiful day.
Thank you. I did observe the neighbor, I did observe her house, which was there. Thank you, John.
I went on a different day, but did see the site. Sorry?
It's in a perfect spot. I'm across from, on the bedroom, on floor.
Oh.
Do you want to state your name and your address and all that? Might as well, since you're...
Is this your letter? Did you receive? No.
I am Edward Russell, 1035 Route 308, and I'm for the project. So it's a perfect spot for it. It won't take away from my farmland. That's the other thing you got to look at, too. It's down away from the farmland.
So what'd you say the address?
1035.
1035.
So across the street
Yes.
from Mr.
Yes.
Baker.
And 1064.
No questions?
No questions? Okay, great, thank you for your input.
Thank you.
All right, I don't have any questions or concerns. I'm glad that you're able to give us a rendering of what you believe the property is going to look like, or the structure is going to look like in the approximate dimensions. At this point in time, I don't have a problem with making a motion to closing the public hearing, but I want to hear from the rest of the gang here.
And I just have one other question before you do that.
Absolutely.
Mr. DuPont, because you mentioned that permission's already been received to work inside the wetland buffer. So the planning board's already given approval, has already issued the wetlands permit?
No, Mr. Baker was granted a permit from the DEC and the Army Corps to clean up part of the wetlands buffer back in 2017.
Okay.
So that was granted and that work was done legally.
Okay, but there's still, my understanding is that there's another application pending before the planning board right
Oh, yeah.
for a counter Rhinebeck wetlands.
That's correct. He still has to go through
That's
that.
still pending, waiting for this variance to be resolved.
Yeah, we're following through the steps. He didn't realize he had to come before the zoning board, so he had that process started at the planning board, and then this was identified as
Understood.
an
Okay,
impediment.
thank you.
Okay, at this time, I'd make a motion to close the public hearing. Do I have a second? Second. Okay. All in favor? Aye. Opposed? All right, the public hearing has been closed. We have 62 days to render a decision. We should render that in less time. Typically, we render it by the next meeting, which is April...
April 17th.
I'm so sorry.
That's okay.
April 17th.
4/17, yeah.
4/17. So we should have a resolution by the 17th.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you. Good night.
Excuse me?
Do we know who this was assigned to?
Tim has...
Tim had it.
Tim.
All right, I don't think we have any other matters on, so, John, unless you have something?
Conduct any deliberations, but does Tim have adequate guidance with regard to the resolution?
Yeah, I mean, I can, I guess my main thing is, I think it is a lovely spot and appropriate for a house to be on that spot. I just had some concerns about what it was going to look like and the general dimensions from the testimony tonight. I'm satisfied that I know generally what the house is supposed to look like, generally what the dimensions are going to be. I think with council's permission, perhaps we can incorporate that some way in the resolution. I don't know if that's a possibility.
Sure.
Because I think the guidelines we were given were the outside guidelines. The structure actually may be smaller, and just the general area it's going to be in are going to dictate the size of it as well.
Yep.
So,
I think you might also want to note the differences between this application and the wheel application, that the existing structure that will become the accessory structure in this case is going to be much smaller than the principal structure to be constructed. So you don't have some of the same concerns that were set forth in the wheel case.
right. No, the barn, as I recollect, that was going to be, was that wheel?
That was the one where the house, which was the existing primary residence, was going to become an accessory structure, and the barn was going to be renovated to become the new primary residence.
Both of those structures are much bigger than the
Yes.
cottage or whatever it is that currently exists there, and the size of this.
What's the size of the existing cottage?
600 square feet.
Okay, so it's under the accessory
Yeah.
structure size.
That's why they only need the one.
Yeah.
It presents more of a classic accessory dwelling scenario.
Yeah, I think in the wheel case, wasn't it the primary soon-to-be accessory was...
They were swapping it.
They were swapping it.
Yep.
That was like 3,500.
Yes, they
Square
were
feet.
Yes,
far in
it was
excess.
huge.
Far in excess.
Yeah.
It was much
Yeah.
larger. And the
Yeah.
barn was enormous too, as I recall.
Yep.
7,000,
So
something
it's
like that.
apples and oranges here.
Yeah.
But that's a good point.
Draft within the week.
Okay.
I mean, I generally
This has been
agree.
stretched out, so.
It looks, it looks like a variance that is reasonably approved. My one concern is that we did hear from one neighbor who was vehemently against it, and I guess the points that she raised Some of them I couldn't find on site. I mean, she was saying that there was garbage and, I don't know, so the landowner had been doing some things by the road and across the road. I didn't really see any of those. She did say that you could see her house from the new home site, and I could see that, but it didn't seem like it was at all terribly intrusive or impinging on her enjoyment. So that is a balancing issue there. That's the only one that I'm aware of. Are there any others?
Whatever concerns that she raised, I mean, as you know, we have people that come in front of the board that speak to a wide range of issues, sometimes not realizing what criteria the board's obligated under the law to apply. So you have to sort through and see whether, I wasn't present at that meeting, Kim did briefly, but you have to see what of the concerns that were raised by that person, fall within the elements of the balancing test.
Exactly.
Yeah.
I think just for clarification, it's probably a question for Mr. Russell. On the front part of the Baker property, what's next to 308, there is a lot of equipment there or I think it's still on his property, because his property comes up and then goes, it's kind of an L. Yeah. And is that your equipment?
Yeah, it's farm.
But I think that's what,
It's also in the MAG district by the state.
yes. And to what, I think part of her concern was that she didn't see what the use of that equipment was.
We make the hay and everything. And the horses there.
So that's what,
So,
when you come up from the entrance to his
Yeah.
property and then it dog
No,
legs
I
over
remember
there.
seeing
And so
that.
there's quite a bit of equipment there. Some of it looked like old buses,
No, but.
so I was primarily focused on the neighbors.
Yes, it's all registered.
How the
And it falls
neighbors'
under the ag district law for leaders.
house faced, and then it did not seem to be facing the development site. So,
down by the lake.
yeah, down by
Yeah,
the lake.
right,
So
right.
her house seemed to be, the woman with concerns,
Right.
her house seems to be facing, I won't say it has zero view from,
You'd have to look off to your left.
yeah, you
Yeah.
have to, it seemed like you'd have to really lean into the window and look off to your left. So it didn't seem like it would be intruding in a significant way, at least to my,
Yeah.
on my site visit. That's as far as I could tell, so those were the things that I focused on, and it didn't seem to be an overwhelming issue, notwithstanding the woman's strong opposition.
Well, I think Ms. Gallagher brought up many valid points, and I'm glad she did, because I think, not, I don't want to say forced, but motivated us to go back out there yet again to really take a harder look at the property so we can be more certain about our decision. So I thank her for that. And I think you're right that based upon the site visit, she's really going to have to look to her far left to see him, and the spot where the house is going to be is a lovely, appropriate spot, in my opinion, but,
It's one of the nicest I've seen in town. It's
Yeah.
incredible.
so, anyway, I think, Tim, you're getting positive vibes.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. So, if there is no additional comment, concern, I will entertain a motion to adjourn the meeting.
Motion to adjourn.
Seconded?
Second?
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. All right. Good job.